4 minutes to 7 now, and scientists studying why it can take decades for exposure to asbestos to develop into a cancer diagnosis are receiving £2.1 million in funding. Well, joining us now is Dr. Sam Godfrey, who's a Research Information Lead at Cancer Research UK. Good morning to you, Dr. Godfrey. What are you hoping these researchers will be able to find?
Well, what we're hoping to find here is a way of spotting mesothelioma early. So mesothelioma is this cancer that's caused by asbestos exposure. But what's weird about it is it takes 35 years, 40 years sometimes for a single asbestos fibre to work its way into irritating the lungs in such a way that the mesothelioma cancer comes along. What we then have a challenge with is actually spotting when it does begins to develop and knowing how to start treating it. The sooner we can start treatment, the better. But because it's such a sort of difficult to diagnose cancer, often it remains sort of growing for several years before treatment starts. And that really impacts on people's chances of survival.
And do we know how long it takes between contact and beginning to the patient not feeling right, never mind a diagnosis?
Yeah, I mean that's a big part of the problem here, because the not feeling right is hard to even lock down. You've got this like people develop sort of chest pains or coughs or something, but they're quite indistinct. So actually, these are things that we get all the time anyway. You could have asthma, you could just have a slight lung infection, you could have a bit of a cold. All these things could also be mistaken for the mesothelioma symptoms. And so what we don't have is we do not have any way of actually reliably spotting mesothelioma developing really, really early. And so what this research is going to do is it's going to try and develop really advanced, cutting-edge technologies that can allow us to spot the very earliest signs of mesothelioma. And then that will hopefully allow us to do far more effective treatment.
And this work is going to be done at Cambridge and in Glasgow, sadly, because the west of Scotland's one of the worst affected areas in the UK, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, because asbestos was so heavily used in industry, particularly the shipping industry used it a lot. And in the 1970s and 80s in particular, asbestos was used everywhere with very little safety equipment. Asbestos is a very useful mineral. It's very good at insulator, and so it was used through so much industry, and as a result lots and lots of people were exposed, not even just the adults working on the docks, but also children at the time who might hug their father who came home from work could get exposed to asbestos. And so I think we have the highest rates in Europe of mesothelioma from it. And luckily Scotland has such a strong research pedigree, and Cancer Research UK is able to fund this world-leading, exciting research there that hopefully make a big difference.
And once it's diagnosed, is there a treatment for it, or is that work that will be done as well?
So that'll also be factored into it. So the things, there are treatments for it. Conventional treatments like chemotherapy and radiotherapy don't do very much with mesothelioma. A few years ago, Cancer Research UK made a discovery that a type of immunotherapy could really boost survival for mesothelioma. But the treatments still aren't very good compared to a lot of other cancers. People don't really survive mesothelioma for very long, and so there does need to be new work. So again, the more we can uncover about how this cancer develops, which is something we don't really know, how we can spot it, the more we can also find sort of molecular tricks and quirks that allow us to come up with new drugs and new targets that could treat this disease.
Sam, good to talk to you. Dr. Sam Godfrey there from Cancer Research UK.
On Digital Radio.